Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this VfB Stuttgart match reaction from the UEFA Champions League. Doing another one of these match reactions. Delighted to be joined by Travis from VfB Americana. We're just going to get stuck into another match reaction. I did one 2 weeks ago, and it was the flip reverse scoreline of what we've just witnessed tonight, this afternoon, this morning, wherever you're watching VfB. So absolutely, buzzing to get into this. We'll kind of work our way through the game, first half, second half, and then we'll do some player ratings at the end. Get yours in, scoring everyone out of 10. And then the subs as well, although probably only giving Keitel a score because the other subs came on so late. And obviously we can talk about Hoeness and how he managed the game as well. So sit back, enjoy with us. Let me just obviously remind you guys of what the score was. Of course, it was VfB Stuttgart 5, BSC Young Boys 1. It's the complete opposite of what happened last week. And Travis, before we get into goals, action, the permutations of this match were massive for VfB and our lads. So were you comfortable with the starting 11 first and foremost? That Sebastian put out is pretty much, all he could do with what was available.
Yeah. First off, Rory, thanks for not inviting me on your previous instant react because that one was a bit of a rough go against Red Star. And thanks for the invite on this one. Yeah, we were talking in our American chat group about we were glad to see Joshua back at right back. And then, like you mentioned, because of the injuries and because of the players that can't be registered, like a Nick Valtamata or Justin Deal, what are you going to do? That's why you see guys like Tomas Castaneras on the bench. They had to pull them up from the second team. So the only concern we had was that if we need offense later, that there's none there other than maybe Pascal Stenzel or something like that. So it was good to see Jeff Chabot get back, and he looked pretty decent today, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. But yeah, it was good to see Reeder back on the right side, I thought, as opposed to having Enzo over there. And we were just excited because Joshua was back at that position that made him an international player at right back. So that was good. And then, like you said, this pickings are pretty slim. So Sebastian didn't have a lot to go with. So his lineup made a lot of sense, on our end.
Yeah, absolutely. I was, tweeting about it or posting about it, whatever you call it these days, on Blue Sky. And I was very happy to see Wagnerman back there. And so, we'll get stuck into the game. Obviously, Mark saying hello, saying what a result. Pity the lads can get a few more at the end. Maybe we're being greedy there, Mark. But I know you're thrilled that VfB had done the job this evening. So, going into the game, because most of this chat and show is going to be pretty uber positive. But I think we have to, navigate the start, which wasn't terrible, but obviously in reverse to what happened against Red Star, the lads go 1-0 down early on thanks to a very good strike from their central defensive midfield of Young Boys. And it kind of comes out of nowhere. It's a second phase goal where a pass was played into the box isn't necessarily cleared too well. And then I think it's Stiller who's the player who tries to press the player who scores the goal. So any massive complaints, Travis, on that first goal? Newbell is also unsighted, so there's not much he can do, I guess. So any qualms with that one?
It was very similar to that goal that was given up in the second half against Union last week. It's just a particular player didn't clear it well enough, didn't press well enough, and gave the opposition space, and they were able to put a good shot on the goal. And Alex, we couldn't tell if the ball was coming in hot. So I don't know if he had enough time to react. It's always tough for a goalkeeper when they're just standing there and they don't react at all. So maybe he looked a little worse than it actually was. It was interesting because this team can go down a goal or two and they can come back and get a W, but you give us a 1-goal advantage. And I don't know if it's a mentality thing or what, and we struggle. So in a weird way, as disappointing as that start was, maybe it was kind of like the Union match when Union scored that first goal. All of a sudden the guys woke up and all of a sudden they started to play a lot better. We've all played sports before where you go into a match where you know you're going to win. You know you're going to win. And so maybe you're not going at full speed. And then they punch you in the mouth or they make a play that kind of puts you on your heels. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, I need to bring my A game. And it seemed like there was a little bit of that. And Young Boys were going on an emotional roller coaster. They had a player who lost a family member recently. And so that was just, they were going high on emotion. The thing that I saw as the game was starting is it seemed like we were clearly the better team on the pitch. But they were playing with pressing and we were struggling with that. And it just looked like we took some time to get into the game, whereas the Young Boys were immediately on the front foot and they were immediately taking it to us. And that's, I guess, kind of an issue I think a lot of us as supporters have, is that if these guys can just come out right away in fifth gear, really good things can happen. It's just a weird situation this season. Champions League, Bundesliga, they need to get punched in the mouth a little bit, it seems, before they kind of wake up and say, okay, let's bring our A game. Because when they bring their A game, oy vey, we saw it today.
Yeah, exactly. I think you make a good point there. And I think the starting of matches has been quite interesting, particularly in the Champions League, because like you say, it took for Young Boys to give us a whack. And Demirovic had a couple of good chances thereafter, and we'll come on to him and his performance as well, because I want to talk about him, and get your thoughts on that, Travis. But so when Young Boys scored, you could tell the volume in the stadium didn't really change, as in, like, obviously they didn't react to, pleasantly to going a goal down, but the confidence was still there in the stadium, I felt, and that kind of made me feel better. Despite the fact that I was like, we've really got to turn this around quickly. I don't want to go into half time 1-0 down and then suffer, one of those ugly nights where it doesn't quite fall for us because certain players in the first half were not having a good impact in terms of accuracy, particularly. Like, we were so loose on the ball. All that in mind, it's been an emotional thing for the lads, because, like you say, they've started super hot in some games. Like, I think the emotions have been too high. I think it was at the first home game, they were just so all over the place and they were so on it and wanting to represent. And then this is like the opposite way around. They wanted to maybe keep themselves on an even keel, but then they played themselves into trouble in a weird way. It was a poor-ish start, but obviously the lads had so much possession. So I think Stuttgart have had the third highest possession so far in the Champions League, behind Bayern and someone else. I can't remember who the other team is. So naturally, Travis, we played our way back into it, and Angelo Stiller was responsible for goal number 1. A lovely bit of interplay between him and Wagnerman, getting himself forward as he always would do. Really, really cool inside the box to take his time and slide it home for 1-1. What impressed you about that goal, and then the way that the lads started to get themselves going again?
I think number one is just that I think there is a mentality problem, but I do think their mentality is a strength too. It's just they flip the switch once in a while, and I think the really good teams, the switch is always on. And for these guys, they sometimes turn it on and off. So it was really nice to see them turn that switch back on and just get at it. And come on, I think one of the turning points in the game was when Angelo Stiller got into the game. We saw it last week. We've seen it a lot this season, that when him and Ada are playing really well, everything is just running really smoothly. And so once, and we'll talk about Yannick later, but once that pivot just started to become a well-oiled machine, Young Boys didn't have an answer for it. And at that point, it just became, as a Stuttgart supporter, Rory, it's weird to be confident. It's exactly what you said. You're like, okay, the longer this goes 1-1, something crazy can happen. But you just start to get this level of confidence that the talent on the pitch is so much stronger for the guys in the white and red that they're going to find a way. The only question we had was like, is Demi going to get off the schneid at all? Because it was like you could give this guy all day and he's not gonna hit it. So it was awesome to see them get their mentality back in. It was funny. We were joking about how who needs a $27 million striker when you can have your center backs and your right backs and your midfielders score goals. So the biggest takeaway I took is once Angelo got going, the rest of the team started to get going.
Yeah. You've got the nail on the head there. And we can do like a man of the match as well later when we're doing the match ratings. And no spoiler alerts, but I thought he was back to his best tonight. He was awesome in pretty much everything he did. Obviously, you talked about the pivot there, and obviously his partnership with club captain Atakan Karasor. And yeah, interesting that obviously Atakan was brought off at half-time for Keitel. The commentary and indications that I have so far, I don't know whether it's an injury or not, and presume if it's just a rotation thing, then a lot more interesting. Nothing wrong with Karasor's performance, just purely because the fact that he didn't do anything necessarily wrong, although he did completely mess up a very easy chance to set up Furyk for a first half goal. He didn't. He made an easy pass look hard there, unfortunately. But yeah, so that was obviously it for the first half, and then into the second half we go. 1-1, tricky scoreline against a team that is just desperate to get their first Champions League points, let alone anything else. Especially for young boys, you always kind of look out for names that you half recognise. There was a few names out there to Bundesliga fans as well. Obviously, they started off with Cedric Itten up top, who did absolutely nothing all game and was very, very well marshalled, I thought. But you see a name, you think, former Greuther Fürth man. They had Patrick Pfeiffer, who came on later on in the match when it was obviously a bit more comfortable. But yeah, you're always kind of fearful of those players. Before we kind of move on to the delights of the 4 second half goals, any players from Young Boys that you picked out that thought, okay, yeah, he's kind of scaring me a little bit. He's got a bit about him. I didn't mind I thought their left winger Montero, I think he and Wagnerman had a good battle actually for most of the first half.
That was the guy that I was going to pick out. It looked like a big dude. Looked like he was giving Joshua a little bit of work to handle. To me, it was a little bit Montero, and then I believe is it Virginis?
Yeah,
was on the opposite side. Really looked to be giving Maxi a headache there, and we're not used to seeing that. Maxi is one of the best, left backs in the world in Europe. And the last few Champions League games, he's kind of struggled a little bit. It seems to get into the game and maybe with the speed. So those two guys on the wing, I thought were giving us a little bit of trouble. But I think we forget how strong Joshua Wagnerman really is. I mean, how fast his recovery is. So moving him to that right back position, I think is just so key for so many things because it allows a Jeff Chabot, who's not the fastest guy in the world, to maybe play up a little bit more because he knows Joshua is going to be able to recover and come back, almost like Hiroki Ito last year was able to do. So those are pretty much the only two guys that I was kind of scared of. Outside of the emotion, Young Boys really didn't have much going for them. But it's like you alluded to earlier, the longer this game went and it was close, it was just a matter of them picking up belief and then us maybe having a mistake. And we had some mistakes in this one that if Young Boys were a better club, I think we get punished a little bit more.
Yeah, agree. And like you say, it didn't take long in the second half for VfB to get their first chance because Hoeness almost missed it. because Mio immediately picks up and plays in Demirovic. And Demirovic didn't even look like he knew where the goal was. He hit it that far wide. Yeah, he just got his senses completely wrong there. Just want to pick up something that Ballum said. I think we've kind of alluded to it already, that were we nervous at half time? Yeah, like we've already said there, I think there were nerves with a confidence, but just knowing the game of football and how it can punish you. It's always an interesting one. And Mark's asking as well, again, before we get into the big moment of the second half, what do the other viewers think about Stuttgart's chances of progression? We'll talk about the table situation in a second, because we know how tight it is and how potentially enticing a last day fixture at home to Paris Saint-Germain could be for all VfB fans. But anyway, let's get into the goals and talk some lovely VfB moves. And credit has to go to Bern native Fabian Rieder. He's been a little bit in the press the last few days, talking about how he wants to stay at Stuttgart permanently. And a lot of VfB fans have been trying to ask the question, is he worth it for the money that's being quoted? Mm-hmm. The first half he was fine, but he looked like he was trying just too hard and things weren't coming off. But second half, he makes a nice direct run, gets to the byline, looks to be that he's out-muscled, but somehow keeps the ball in, plays it to Mio, who does very well to slot it in for 2-1. I'm buzzing that it's 2-1 and that the goal stands, but I feel like that's like a bit of if it's not given on field, it wouldn't be overturned, as in like it would say 1-1. So it's like the benefit of the doubt one for me, like when you see in rugby or things like that. Big moment in the match, Travis.
As a Stuttgart supporter, you're shocked that we got that call, that went our way. I'll be honest, Rory. I watched it as much as everybody else did. I don't know how they call that ball in. I will take it every day of the week. I felt bad for the young boy, because you could tell the official on the sideline raises his flag to indicate the ball's out of bounds. And so the young boys players stopped playing. They stopped playing for like 2-3 seconds. Stuttgart did not. So credit to them for playing through the whistle or until the flag is thrown, as we say in the States. And they got that goal. And so if I was on the flip side of this, I would be pretty upset because the one official seemed to indicate the ball was out, but the whistle was never blown. Like I said, I am still shocked that call went our way. But like Wilhelm asked, we were nervous at halftime because you got Demi who's struggling. You've got Alex who is on a bit of a yikes tour. Fabian is invisible. That's what I wrote down in my notes, is like Fabian Rieder invisible in the first half. And then he goes, and according to one of the websites I looked at, he had 3 assists in the game. And you're like, oh, okay, well, that's quite a way to be visible there. I liked him on the right side. I liked his just not giving up attitude. And the same thing with Enzo. He plays with a bit of an edge. And that's what we kind of complained about this team prior to Hoeness, is like they give up on plays. There was a number of times where teams would take fast free kicks and we'd be penalized because we just weren't ready, weren't mentally into it. And that's what you and I talked about earlier, is there's times where this club can flip the switch. And when they do, they can play eye to eye with Real Madrid. When they don't, they can get blown out by Red Star. And this was the catalyst, I think, that led to just the onslaught of the goals after that. Because after that point, if I'm a Young Boys supporter, I'm like, it's over. We can't win this game. And I think you sort of saw that a little bit, to where they were definitely deflated after that. And on the opposite end, we were inflated.
Massively inflated. And then it led to, confidence and players playing with expression and freedom, which is a lovely thing to see. So, Fabian then goes even more direct at a young boy fullback, young boy's fullback. Does well to win the free kick. You think it's his territory and that he's going to whip it in with great pace or just go for goal, whichever way around. Tricks everyone. The referee very kindly acts as a blocker. It takes a bit of time. I felt like he was very casual getting out of the way of this. Steps over it for Chris Furyk to step onto it. And beautifully curl it in with great control. Sometimes you see players coming onto those and they come at it with such pace that it balloons out of everywhere. I just love the way that Furyk took his time. He shouldn't have probably had time, but took his time to bend it in. 3-1 game over.
Does he ever score a goal on the other side of the net? He always seems like it's over on that right side. It was just, they obviously drew that play up, during the week or whatever. Like you said, Fabian Rieder's probably our best corner kick, free kick guy. And they caught them off guard there. And that's another case where we got a little lucky. Like you said, the official decided to kind of play a little defense against Young Boys. But Chris has just been on a run of form. One of the things I wrote down in my notes is, like, in the first half, you had a couple guys that were playing really well. Chris was one of those guys. And he, outside of his socks being too low, that's what we criticize him for, just looks weird with his socks. And I don't know if he has shin guards or not, but he's coming back to the Chris of old. And I like exactly what you said, is that one of the reasons the guys like playing for Sebastian, I remember they said this last year, is he has a system, but he allows them to have freedom within that system. And Chris is a guy who was exploiting that the last few weeks, and he's getting back to that national team level Chris that we're used to. Just a beautiful goal that you're like, if that's not one of the goals of the week, I'll be surprised, because that thing was just a thing of beauty. And then Fabian Rieder, I mean, if he wants to earn that $10 million transfer fee, which is what it's rumored to be, he put on a pretty good show for his resume today.
He sure did. Yeah, he was getting more and more confident, and he was playing a really big part in a very comfortable second half for the lads. Got even better quite soon after. Fourth goal, obviously Enzo Mio being played, gets to the byline and plays a very fast hard ball across the defensive area into the danger zone. And Wagnerman's there typically to finish very well first time on the volley for 4-1. Very happy. And another slick move, but really nice move. Assist, for Mio, but a pre-assist, if we're being nice, for Keitel, because my notes up until that point were steady so far, not done anything wrong, but that weight of pass was really, really nice so that Mio didn't have to break stride, and that is also important in creating that goal.
I think that's the biggest issue this team has had over the last month, is just the weight of the passes, to use your phrase. It just hasn't been there. And whether from Angelo to Enzo, it's just, even today, like you mentioned, the Ada Kerzor pass to Chris was just so weak that Chris had basically an open net, and it came to nothing. That was one of the interesting things, is once they turned it on and once Yannick came in, he has some nice passes. And we've been kind of critical of the guy because he's been invisible. And me especially, because I predicted him to be the surprise pickup of the year. He's making me look really bad, but he looked really good today. The other thing that was nice is to see Joshua when he broke that seal last year and he got that goal, and then doing it again this year. That was a nice, Enzo had a brilliant play there. He was ripping Young Boys up in that second half, just destroying them. Josh had a really nice wherewithal to get the leg on that and put that in. So those were just three really great plays. Yannick making that pass, Enzo just the individual brilliance, and then Josh knowing to be in the right place at the right time, which I think one of our strikers is struggling with right now. And so to put this way, at this point too, because half of my notes are Demi, yikes, Demi, what are you doing? Demi, come on. So to see them be able to put these things away, and then at some point you're like, oh my goodness, we may catch up with the goal difference in this match alone, because Young Boys at that point, I haven't looked at the momentum chart, but it's got to be all red, because it was just, it was like one of those games you played in school when you knew you were playing the lesser team and you knew you had a chance to score, whether it was basketball, football, whatever. And all these guys, their eyes were getting like just saucers because they knew this was their chance to get a Champions League goal. And it was just awesome to see Enzo he's rumored to be around a $40 million value. Unfortunately, Stuart's probably only going to get around 20 for him because of our exit clauses. Yeah. This guy is showing he's worth every penny of that, because he was just lights out in that second half.
Yeah. Yeah, he picked up so much. I was disappointed with him in the first half, but he massively lit up that second half. And then the fifth goal, and like you say, I like your point about the players, looking hungry for that Champions League goal because it looked like there was goals to be taken. And obviously, so Yannick Keitel manages to finish off a nice flowing move actually, and Reader gets his third assist by very gently passing it on, to which it was nice. It was a nice passing move, and Demirovic was heavily involved in that. So again, credit at least to him there. Keitel, chances his arm, good strike, accurate. 5 happy days, buzzing for him, buzzing, for the team. That is a complete reverse of what happened 2 weeks ago. So and then the game meandered on for another 15 minutes after that. A couple of, and when we get into the player ratings, which we'll do in a sec, a couple of very strange, and it must have been that Nubel completely switched off because he almost passed it to their striker twice in like the space of 2 minutes. Sloppy play at the end, which can happen. And I saw a few clips of them, the camera veering onto Hoeness, and he didn't look overly impressed at some of the end of match play, which you can understand. Before we go into maybe the player ratings, which we'll do out of 10, and if you're watching, do make sure you join in and have your say. Let's just quickly look at the table as things stand now after match week 6. Stuttgart now, after that win, are still 26th. I don't think we've gone up a place, have we? Because I think that's pretty much where we were. We're level on points with PSG. We're on -3 goal difference. They have 0. But then there's a cluster of teams on 8 points: Zagreb, PSV, and Man City. Hilariously, you're really looking at that Slovan Bratislava match first up. I mean, if we win that, we're in great shape, I guess, for that top 24. How are you feeling about that one?
It was funny because this was a must win if we were going to make the knockout stage. And it was trending. You're like, oh boy, are we going to join Leipzig as the team that, the Bundesliga just isn't doing it this year? At least we're not. And it was, once we got the win, you're like, all right, we're back in. And then you look at the table, you're like, oh, we're right where we were. So it's going to be a dogfight. It's interesting because I don't know if you were like this when the groups came out. We were like, okay, we got some tough ones, but we got some easy ones here. Making the knockout stage, I think that's not just doable. I would almost consider that a lock. And now it's going to be a battle. I bet, like you said earlier, it's going to come down to that PSG game at the end, and that's going to decide which one of those two teams is going to make the knockout stage. So it's just it's a crazy ride that Stuttgart supporters have been on the last few years, from the relegation to the relegation playoffs, Champions League, to moaning about Champions League table placement, which is just bonkers when you think about it. We're right in the spot probably we deserve, and we have it in the palm of our hands. So if we can take care of business in our next match, which in theory we should, it's going to make for a very exciting home match against PSG. And by then, I'm hoping we get some of our guys back and we're a little bit healthier, because we're a much more dangerous club when we have our full complement here. So we took care of the business we had to take care of. We didn't lose ground. We're still right in it. We got almost 3 million euro for the win. So I know Alex Verrill and the boys are happy about the money that we got for this. And this was good for the VfB soul, right? I think the players needed this. The supporters needed this. This is a great confidence booster going into December and the end of the first round of the year. So we've got a Pokal win, we got a Bundesliga win, we got a Champions League win all in the same week. I mean, Rory, I don't know when the last time that has happened for Stuttgart. You and I might not have been born, but that was just a great way to end what has been a really good week.
It has been a really good week. Yeah, you make a great point with the Pokal. And going into the new year, another very good point. If we get some of those boys back and they're anywhere near and they reach the levels that they have been playing, and I think as well, we'll be able to make adjustments to our we'll be able to make adjustments to the Champions League registration if we get through. So maybe make some rather clever adjustments in that sense, for sure. Danny just saying, "Good evening, chaps. Just got out of the stadium was just insanity. Must have been absolutely unreal, mate. I hope you enjoyed it." Right, so let's do some player ratings. Get involved in this, guys, if you can do. We'll just work through the starting 11 and probably do Keitel as well. The other subs get a pass for not really doing anything because they came on so late. Right then, so we can take it in terms of leading on player by player. Starting off with Nubel. We can give him a kind of standard 6, I guess, because he didn't do anything or didn't have to do anything. For the first goal, can't really blame him. And then he got a bit sloppy towards the end. So I just lock in a 6 because it's just concentration levels really for most of it.
Yeah, I'm going to do the same with you on this one. It was bizarre because he started the match weak. I think, maybe you're right. Maybe you shouldn't get as much blame for that first goal. But then he ended the match weak as well with those passes. It's just, he's in this weird, crisis of confidence area right now. And if I'm Bayern, this was the knock on the guy when he was at Monaco, is that he has these moments, and we've seen it this week. So yeah, I would go with the 6 in this one. There weren't a lot of things he had to do, but the things he did do were kind of scary. So I'll go with the 6 with you on that too.
Lovely stuff. Right, you lead us through Wagnerman then, playing at his restored right back position.
I'm going to, just because I want Sebastian to listen, I'm going to give it I'll probably get 8.5 on this one. I thought I'll go 9. I'm going to be overly optimistic on this one. I thought he was one of the keys for our defense. I thought he played really well in those one-on-one matchups. He got an assist. He got a goal. I'm going to go 9.
Love it. Okay, we're going. There are going to be some high scores. 9. I'm gonna be the misery guts, I reckon, aren't I? I think it was a very strong 8 for me. Loved what he did. Great to get his goal. And that's probably the most tested I've seen him from a physical point of view for a while, because he was a big lad that he was playing against. And he did hold up very well, neat and tidy on the ball. But Travis is locking in a 9, so that's what we're going with. Okay, then the 2 centre halves, we can probably whisk through this pretty quickly. Rouault and Chabot, we might as well just do it as a duo because they both were physically fine, won their headers. Rouault does well to cover in, I think, and Chabot did it equally well, but I think Rouault was slightly better at it. It was important for Chabot to have a trouble-free match, and when he plays against a striker like that, he's a lot more comfortable. So probably a standard 7 for them both.
We're going to agree on this one too. 7. I think Rouault, I thought he played really well. I thought Chabot, I 100% agree with you. When he plays up against a striker like a Seru, or I bet a Demi, or this guy from Young Boys, that's where he shines. And I thought he looked really good there. Were you surprised at all that Chabot was in there instead of, say, Henry?
Well, yeah, but it was probably also seen as a good game to get him back into with the profile of the striker that he was playing against. Just probably what Seb was thinking.
Yeah, for Maxi, I'll start with Maxi. I'm probably going to give him, this is going to be lower. If I gave Alex a 6, I can't give Maxi a 6. I loved his hustle. It looked like he was struggling a bit there. I'm going to give a 6.5. I'll go 7. I'll go a whole number 7. I would probably lean closer to 6.5 in this one. It just seemed like he's got a lot of miles on his legs right now, And if there was a way to rotate him out and give him a break, I think he could use it because I don't think he's as dynamic as we're used to seeing him. And I think it's just simply he's playing all the time. So I'll be kind. I'll give him a 7, but I could be convinced to go down to 6.
Yeah, I think when you're measuring him up against his fellow fullback partner, he's been outshone. That's not a bad thing. His link-up play with Furyk was standard and strong as ever.
That's good.
But yeah, I think that dynamism and wasn't as involved in matches and did struggle at times on the one-on-one. So I'm happy with we can level out at maybe a 6.5 then if you're kind of thinking that. So we'll lock that in. Jam 64, 84, great win. Auf geht's Jungs aus Cannstatt. Absolutely buzzing. What a great result for the VfB tonight. On to the double pivot. So we'll do this separately, and so we can probably do Atakan a little bit easier because he was fine for me, solid, nothing wrong, but a bit inaccurate. Still, I wouldn't say he's back to his best, whereas I think Stiller definitely was tonight and had been. So I would say for Atakan, standard 6 for me. Maybe a bit too harsh. 6.5. It wasn't as, but for 45 minutes work. I'm in an R in. Travis, what you reckon?
I'll be the man of misery on this one. I'll let you take this one off. I'm going to go to 6 here. I think maybe had he stayed on, he would have figured out the pace of the game like Stiller did later. But it just looked like things were bogged down a little bit. My last memory is that pass that he didn't really get to Chris. So I think he's key to what we do. I don't think he was key to what we did today. So I'm going to go a little lower than you. I'm going to go with 6 on this one. Whereas with Angelo, though, I'm not going to give him a 10, but if Joshua gets a 9, Angelo gets a 9. Once he figured out the game, he was just lights out. And there's talk about him wanting a raise. Pay the man. Pay the man. Him and Hoeness are just like peanut butter and jelly. They work so well together. And I think part of the reason Keitel's going to get a pretty good grade from me is that Angelo was able to kind of put him under his wing a little bit, maybe protect him a little bit, and allow him to play his game. But Angelo, to me, is the engine of this team. And once his engine got going today, this team got going. So I'm going 9.
Yeah. I can't say any more than that. Maybe 9.1, but yeah, he was awesome after he got going. Right, the attacking quartet then, if we start with Fabian Rieder, let's kind of think through it. I mean, if you're kind of splitting it between two halves, you'd give it very different scores. But of course, across the full match, 3 assists, really big impact in the second half, which is vital to a Stuttgart win. So you have to score him highly. I would reckon, I don't think he was as good as Stiller or necessarily Wagnerman. I'd say a very strong 8. I thought he was really good and had a really positive impact.
Yeah, he is the perfect just avatar for this team. He's either lights out or he's lights off. And the first half, I honestly think if we had our full complement or close to it, he might have gotten subbed out at halftime. He wasn't showing a whole lot. But then he got up to game speed and he showed a lot in that second half. I'm going to agree with you on this one. I'm going to go an 8, even though maybe he deserves a little higher for just making the play that kind of put this thing to bed. So I'm going to give him an 8. If we're going Enzo next, I'm probably going to rate him a little higher than I should. I almost want to give him a 9.5. I'm going to go a 9. Between Josh, Angelo, and Enzo, I really thought those were the 3 guys that got things going. You could make a case for Enzo getting a 10. He was just destroying. I think the young boys are going to have nightmares about him just ripping them up in the second half. He's really one of the only guys I think that plays with a Dennis Undav-like edge and swagger. And he brought it hard in the second half. I think he is one of the guys that gets a 9. Maybe close to it. I can't give him a 10, but I will give him a 9.
Okay, interesting. This is where we separate a little bit, Travis. I think, and only because those expectations of Mio right now. For me as a person, that first half was so subpar from him, and he was in the game as well. And one thing that I'm frustrated about in previous games with VfB is that he doesn't get given the ball enough, especially when he plays on the right. And so you're very right in saying when he plays in the middle, great. But he was really, really sloppy and he was frustrating. But then that second half, he lit up. I would probably drop him down. He would still get a strong 8 in my book, but that first half was a put off against better teams as well. The amount of times we lose that ball, we get punished 100%. But we'll lock him in as a 9 as we're having good fun, and it's a 5-1 win. On to Furyk then. Like you said, one of the better players in the first half, continued that good work through the second half, got his goal, super clinical, although it was maybe out of Mio and Reader maybe had the ball less at his feet, but when he had it, he did electrical things. I would say 8.5 for me.
You know what? I think I've given out too many 9s already. So I think I'm going to go, boy, I will go with an 8.5 as well on this one. I just thought he was, of all the players in the first, I think he had one of the most well-rounded games. In my notes, he was one of the guys that stood out to me in the first half. He was one of the guys that stood out in the second half. So you're probably 8.5 is probably right on this one. He was just causing so many problems down the left-hand side. You mentioned something earlier I think is really accurate, that he and Maxi have such a good rapport on that left side that I probably graded Maxi a little lower than I should have, because they are doing really well with the link-up play. And you can see their passing, and that side of the field is just so strong. Probably should give him a little higher, but yeah, I'm with you on this one. 8.5 sounds good.
Okay. To the the matter of Demirovic, the striker, who has been blowing hot and cold, and it was just one of those nights. We don't have to go in on him as a player, but we have to talk facts that he had a poor night. He should have had a few goals, and that in that it's just a worry going forwards, especially from a confidence point of view, because he was maybe kept on longer because they probably wanted him to score that goal.
I 100% agree. As a coach, you can just see the guy struggling. He was struggling from the beginning of the game to the end of the game. I know he's not the fastest guy in the world, but I was really surprised at how poorly he played that breakaway.
Yeah.
And how he got caught on that one. And then I cannot recall who made the cross to him, but he basically had an open header. And I don't know what he did with it. He kind of didn't even put it on goal. It just kind of bounced in front of him. It's strange because he played a big part in Nick having at least one of those 2 goals against Union. And then he almost single-handedly saved us a point when it came to the Bremen match. Mm-hmm. So he's just I don't think we're used to having a striker who is either all in or all out. We're used to Seru, who is all over the pitch, and that's just not Demi's game. Today was a game that if this thing had gone on for 180 minutes, I think he's still struggling to put the ball in. Yeah. He had a rough one. I don't think it's a confidence thing for him. I think this is just the player he is, to be honest, which is frustrating, but it's good from his mentality.
Yeah.
His engine is amazing. I don't know if you watch the, I believe it's pronounced Infulge, the program that Stuttgart puts out about once every few weeks about how the season's going. And they did a spotlight on him and Jeff Chabot, who have been friends for a long, long time. And he just seems like a really good, down-to-earth guy that this stuff doesn't really get to him. He wants to perform in front of the home crowd. But I think this is the way he played for Augsburg. He kind of goes cold at some points, but he picks it up. So I don't think he's going to impact his mentality too much. Hopefully he's not listening to this, because my grade is probably going to impact his mentality. I'm going to give him a 5. That's probably too low, because he did have some nice play to help the other guys out. But when you're a striker, you're paid to score goals. And when it becomes glaringly obvious that it's just not going to happen, it's tough to avoid. So I'm going really low on this one. maybe you can talk him up and make him feel better, though.
No, I completely agree. Unfortunately, for Demi, just bad night at the office. Like you say, hot and cold. This was very, very chilly. And I think a 5 is warranted. If you say that 6 is kind of average, he played below par. So 5 it has to be. Right, so just finish off quickly with Yannick Keitel, and then we'll close up for tonight because it's been, we've had great fun doing this. Well, Travis, thoughts on him? Because it sounds like you've had reservations, particularly about him so far, because you've had held so much promise at the start of the season.
Well, he's not the first free transfer from Freiburg we've gotten that has been frustrating. If you remember, Marc-Oliver Kemp was a little bit of a frustrating player as well. And Yannick, I just thought with our defensive issues and with the number of players that we lost before the season even started, and then with the injuries that we've had, I just thought he was a guy who was going to fit in, and he has just struggled and to get on the pitch. And then the couple times he was on the pitch, it wasn't impressive by any means. And then he had a nice match in the Pokal, but that was against Jan. So you're like, well, what's that really mean? He got some mop-up duty against Union, so that was good to see. I think this could be, knock on wood, his coming out party. He looked so good next to Angelo that you couldn't really tell this guy has barely played this season at all. He just looked like a natural out there. And so that gives me a lot of hope going forward. I'm probably going to only grade him. I mean, even though he scored the goal, I'll probably give him a 7.5, 7.75 in that range. I just thought he was solid. It's exactly what you said earlier. He came in, and my first thought was, oh gosh, here we go. But he didn't do anything wrong. And then he started to look good. He started to have some really nice passes. And I think that goal is a once-in-a-lifetime goal. It was fun listening to Dan O'Hagan, who called our game on ESPN+. He's like, this guy never scores. So this is obviously his day, Stuttgart's day here. I think he could be not the missing piece for our back line, but we're playing Angelo a lot. We're playing Otta a lot. We're trying to figure out what our center back pairing is going to be. I think he could be the missing piece that's going to help rotate those guys, rest those guys. And after the way he played today, I'm way more optimistic than I've been on this guy in a long time. Unfortunately, I have to buy his kit now because I put that on Blue Sky that if we win with this guy in, I'm going to do that. Not only did we win, he scored a big goal. He just looked really steady, and I was not expecting that.
He came into his own as the game went on, and the goal, the passes, I think just helped his confidence soar, and got the 5th in what was a very, very handsome and delightful night for VfB Stuttgart and all fans associated with the club. So that brings us to the end of this match reaction live. Hope you've all enjoyed basking in the glory of it. I know myself and Travis have very much enjoyed it. And hopefully, this is the start of some fun collaborations that we're able to do, whether it's just Champions League for this season or we do other stuff. Let us know if you enjoyed it. And, we can try and spread the word and make this a little bit more of a regular thing, should we be able to find the time. But thanks all for watching. Make sure that you follow ours is in Over the Bar on socials, but make sure you get onto Blue Sky and follow Travis at VfB Americana. Get on the pod, spread the good VfB words. Hope you all enjoyed, and we will see you tomorrow night for match week 14 predictions. We'll be back on Friday for fantasy football and all the like. Travis, top man for joining me tonight. Hope you have a good one, and we'll see you all next time. Cheers all.